Hello, everybody. It's time for I have no idea, but this will probably be a really, really short episode of the Mio on MMA podcast. Why is that? Well, there's no UFC card this weekend. There's really no MMA card in general. There are people who are like, "Oh, you got to check out the one," and I will. I'm going to watch the one card tomorrow with Senshai versus Superbon. It's going to be fun. It's going to be great, but it's all kickboxing and Muay Thai. It is no MMA whatsoever. And that's kind of, that's kind of anti to my thing. The reason I've been through this before. The reason I don't break down kickboxing or Muay Thai fights or striking only fights a lot is, frankly, I don't feel qualified. I never particularly... I've never had a kickboxing match. I've had a boxing match, but I've never had a kickboxing match. Never had a Muay Thai match. Never had a Muay Thai lesson, even technically. I've learned how to utilize the Muay Thai clinch from to set up grappling and stuff, but never as a striking element. So it's not my wheelhouse, and there is a difference. I think studying striking in a striking only rule set is different. We've seen this with various kickboxers over the years who have come into MMA and done very, very well, despite not being particularly good kickboxers. And then guys who are very good kickboxers coming into MMA and doing rather poorly. Now, some of that is obviously just at some point you have to learn to grapple, and some people don't. But, Pride was a great example of this. During the Pride Fighting Championship days, you would have some kickboxers who came in, like Mirko Cro Cop, and would do exceptionally well. You would have others that would do exceptionally poorly. That's because I think it's a difference. The addition of a more varied clinch game and takedowns and so on inevitably are going to make it a lot different. So I tend to stay away from that. And it doesn't speak to me on the same level. Even from a doing standpoint. I mean, one of the big reasons I don't do a lot of striking, period, nowadays is I've got bad knees, I've got a bad back. I'm Canadian, so I'm down a couple of teeth already. if you're Canadian, you know what I'm talking about. Hockey, that's the joke. So I tend to stay away from that. I tend to do very much just jiu-jitsu, and every so often I'll do some MMA sparring. So I don't feel comfortable bringing you that. So should you watch the kickboxing card from what? Absolutely. Am I going to give you a huge breakdown on it? No. It's I assume it's going to be on Amazon Prime. Let's see here. Check. Oh, hang on. It might not be on Prime. 1 second here. Available on YouTube. Okay, I mean it's available on YouTube and also on their on Facebook. So there you go. I mean, you could probably get it without paying anything. You might as well check it out. It's gonna be fun and all that. But there's no breakdown I can really give you. And the same goes for the Day of Reckoning boxing card. I will give 2 picks. I am picking Anthony Joshua to beat Otto Wallin. And I'm picking Deontay Wilder to beat Joseph Parker. But, I don't think that that's really saying much. Oh, and Dimitri Bivol to win. I honestly don't expect I'm going to be picking against Dimitri Bivol in any time in the near future. Frankly, man is just, the man is a monster. And we'll just leave it at that. So, I don't have a ton to say about the fights on those cards. They're big events. Check them out. Obviously, the health of combat sports in general is a good idea. But that means that this podcast is kind of left talking mostly about the UFC 298, 96, pardon me, the gift that keeps giving, that fight card, where particularly the main event is still not over. So let's talk about Colby Covington and his reaction to losing the fight. Colby Covington has been on various conservative news outlets to say that he thinks he won and that his support of Trump is actually he's being persecuted for his political beliefs, and that's why he lost the fight. That's a fairly hilarious take. Like, I mean, I've always found that like a lot of, not to get too political, but a lot of right wing persecution complexes tend to be based on very, very little. But I mean, let's think about this for a moment. You're Colby Covington. The UFC has booked you in a title fight that you didn't earn. I mean this very seriously. In the cage, Covington was a 2-2 fighter in his last 4, not very active. The 2 wins he had, not very impressive. Tyron Woodley, George Masvidal, not impressive. And then 2 losses to Kamaru Usman. Granted, don't get me wrong, the best performances of Colby's career are those 2 losses, but still. You have no claim to the title. No claim to a title shot. The UFC puts you in the main event of the card. They do it in their backyard with judges that they tend to utilize a fair bit, and not exactly in like the most blue of all blue states. Like Nevada is not like a Nevada is pretty like whatever the UFC wants, the UFC gets. Let's summarize that. And we're going to bring out the former president, the guy you support. We're going to put him cage side. We're going to make a big deal about it. He's going to come out. He's going to get his own entrance, etc. We've done this before. We do a lot of work for, Trump. Have him cage side. And somehow, no. The judges are actually going to rob you because of your Trump connections. That is some significant, jumping through hoops, mentally speaking. That being said, I don't actually believe he believes any of this. What I mean by that is if you've ever watched Colby Covington talking when he means something, when something's actually got to him, when the trash talk has gotten off of the script and onto something that actually touches him, something inside of him, something actually in his core and not just the gimmick, he gets really emotional. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just a sign. And like with all of these, all of this, I got robbed for supporting Trump stuff, there's no emotion. It's very flat. Still somehow messing up words. Called Donald Trump Donald Tramp at one point. Or President Tramp at one point. There's no way about it. It's just hilarious watching him go on Fox News and the guy be like, I didn't watch the fight, but excuse me while I read some stats from UFC stats to justify your claim that you won the fight. You couldn't find somebody at Fox News who watched the fight? Just saying. He's also on Newsmax, I think. I think it was Newsmax. But, we'll leave it at that. I don't think he believes anything. I think this is just him trying to continue the grift, keep it going, and it's all he got. It's all he's got left. I mean, I hate to sort of justify his grift, but if you're Colby Covington, what else do you do? At this point, real talk, he's not going to reinvent himself as a fighter. He's tried. It's largely failed. He's 35 years old, approaching 36 years old. The physical prime is gone. He frankly doesn't seem like a top-notch physical fighter anymore. Arguably never did, but particularly now. There's just no speed, there's no power to his game. I don't know. You might as well keep trying to dance with what brought you. And I hope to not see him fight again. There you go. And and to be clear, that's not even an anti Colby Covington stance. It's he's actually gotten to the point where he's just sad. He's in that Tony Ferguson, BJ Penn, Sam Alvey, Shogun Hua. Trying to think of other examples here. A lot of fighters in their late 30s, hit this where it's all right, I want you, number one, to have enough money to go away. And number two, I want you to go away. And unfortunately, number one tends not to be true. And that's the problem. Moving on to the other side of that main event, Leon Edwards. Leon Edwards is it's kind of dumb. And I've heard a lot of tried justifications of this where, like, essentially Leon is doing everything not to talk about him versus Belal. Like he said, I'll fight Belal, but, like, it's not exciting. It's not intimidating. Hey, Belal, you got to go figure out why the UFC doesn't like you and all these things, which is weird because, like, Leon Edwards was Belal Muhammad before he was Belal Muhammad. I guess if you want to go back technically, he was John Fitch, who then became Leon Edwards and then became Belal Muhammad. The guy who's unquestionably earned a title shot, but, like, there's no real excitement, no real palpable push, nothing organic. It's just like even people who are trying to hype up Belal Muhammad for a title shot, you just point to his record. Like, it's not like go watch the fights or he's super exciting or whatever. It's just, he's earned it. And he has. And the thing is it's also the fact that it's the only fight that makes sense. Like, if we have a look at the UFC rankings here, I should have pulled this up. But if we look at men's welterweight, here's the rankings. Excuse me. There's a little burp here. Kamaru Usman has already fought Leon Edwards 3 times. Most recently fought at 185. I think he's probably going to be doing 185. Is physically shot. Number 2, Belal Muhammad. Enough said. Number 3, Shavkat Rakhmonov, who a lot of people are bringing up as an option. But here's the thing. Like, we've also seen Shavkat Rakhmonov's, like, the picture of his ankle and how utterly swollen and, like, obviously injured it was heading into the Wonderboy fight and how that impacted him as a fighter. That's going to have to get fixed. I don't know if it's going to require surgery, but the ankle has a long recovery time. Any joint essentially does. And I think one of the various medical accounts that gives, hypotheses and projections for it is like, he may be able to fight like September, October of 2024. So you're going to wait 9 months, 10 months to get your fight with Shavkat. One, the UFC's not going to do that. They're not going to put a title on the shelf for that long for a fight that doesn't sell much. Like, obviously we don't know. We don't get numbers much anymore from the UFC. So it's hard to say this, but, like, does anyone believe that Shavkat Rakhmonov, who does not talk, who is not the most exciting fighter in the world. No, people will, like, come back at me like 100% finishing rate, baby. 100% finishing rate. He's awesome. Did you see him go out there and finish Wonderboy? Yeah, I also saw him have, like, a really boring first round. And yeah, some of that's probably the ankle and whatever, but, like, Shavkat Rakhmonov is not inherently exciting. Like, he's very non-defensive, which means that, things will happen. But, like, against Leon Edwards, like, picture Leon Edwards Shavkat here for a moment. That's not a super exciting fight. It's either Shavkat running over Leon Edwards, having the physicality to overwhelm him, or getting sort of shut down and hit a lot but not finished. Like, there are a lot of, like, tepid ways that fight goes. I don't think it's like if it's a $500,000 buy fight, I think that's being generous. So is the UFC going to wait nearly a year for that to happen? No. Should a 32-year-old Leon Edwards wait that long to fight again? No. My guy, use your prime. We've been through this. Men's 170 has had one title fight winner over the age of 35. That being Tyron Woodley, of all people. You're on a clock. You want to make that money to retire and go off into the sunset and whatever. Guess what? Yeah, it would be great if you could do that with big fights, but you're not going to get them. So take what you can get. Anyways, so Shavkat, not an option. His coach brought up Gilbert Burns. Gilbert's coming off a loss. The UFC hasn't given a title shot to someone off of a loss in the weight class and not to the champion since, like, Justin Eilers at UFC 53. It's not happening. Number 5, he's also booked. I'm pretty sure he's fighting Jack Della Maddalena, I want to say. Which, by the way, I'm pretty reasonably hyped for that fight. Yeah, Jack Della Maddalena, March 9th. So, like, you're gonna wait till after March. So we'll be talking about, again, like, August for a title fight again. No, not on the cards. Go away. Colby Covington, go away. Wonder Boy Thompson just lost. Sean Brady has lost to your boy, Belal Muhammad. Did you? I want to say Jeff Neal actually did beat Belal Muhammad. He did. So I guess you could go. I guess you could try and go with Jeff Neal, but Jeff Neal's also coming off a loss to Shavkat Rakhmonov and is booked to fight Ian Gary on March 9th. So that doesn't work. Then we're at like Vicente Luque and Ian Machado Gary. Gary's booked, I'm pretty sure, against Jeff Neal, of course. And then for Vicente Luque, not booked, coming off a win, but before that, coming off of 2 losses to Belal Muhammad and to Jeff Neal. So, no. So, like, there's no options. I guess you could say there is the idea of doing champ versus champ with Islam Makhachev. I think that's a terrible idea for the UFC because you would be putting 2 belts on a guy who takes potentially, if Islam were to win, obviously. But if you're going to give Islam the shot, you have to be prepped for the idea that like he might actually win. You'd be putting 2 belts on one guy, which has never really worked out all that well for the UFC. Like I know double champ for like Conor McGregor was cool and stuff like that, but realistically, it just ends up shutting down one division. The only exception was like Daniel Cormier, and to a degree, Amanda Nunes did a reasonably good job of defending double title belts. Like Islam's not going to do that. He's got Ramadan. He's off for part of the year for that reason. You don't want that. Or I should say, the UFC doesn't want that. I'm also never really sure why any heavier fighter would want that because to use Islam Makhachev as an example, when he beat Alexander Volkanovski the first time, and even still now with the head kick knockout of Volkanovski, there are still people who think Volkanovski, and I'm one of them, so I'm not saying this is a ridiculous idea, but I still think that like pound for pound he's better because the bigger guy doesn't really benefit off of, in my opinion, champ versus champ fights. Now the second fight with Volkanovski was actually pretty cool. I like the knockout, but it's still like, yeah, but it's pound for pound. You're still fighting the smaller guy. And there's just I don't know why you would want that fight if you're Leon Edwards outside of, I guess, big pay-per-view, but I'm not even sure that would be a huge pay-per-view draw. It might be, but I'm not even sure about that. So there's not really anything else on the table. So you might as well build up Belal Muhammad. And people are like, well, why? Belal's kind of boring. He's kind of dull. Listen, I am not here to hype up Leon Edwards versus Belal Muhammad as a fight. I'm just presenting it as an inevitable. It is the only fight for the next 6 months that makes sense for the welterweight title. Is the only one. If you're going to wait beyond that, other things might come up. But if you're not looking to wait that long, this is the fight you're going to get. This is the fight that makes sense. Build it up. Do what you can. I'm not saying, hey Leon, if you work a amazing promotion game here, you and Belal, $1 million buys. No, it's gonna be like $300K. But like, do what you can. Do what you can. It's a pro wrestling 101. Build up the opponent or build up the feud, whichever. Pick one and go with it. But this whole indifference to fighting Belal Muhammad doesn't make any business sense. And frankly, I don't think Leon is in a position where like the UFC is like, you know what, we're in the Leon Edwards business. Not really. He's kind of dull. Like that's the great irony is that the UFC has proven that they're not in your business. They made you win like 10 fights in a row to get a title shot. They desperately wanted Nate Diaz to beat you. They really wanted Usman to beat you too. Like you need to kind of like realize this, that like you're not the big draw. So you have to compromise this by just, I don't know, fighting a lot, being fairly regular. going out there and putting up 2 to 2.5 title defenses a year. That's how you're going to maximize your money. So I think that's been an absolute mess. Heading into 2024, there's a lot of big things for the UFC. Obviously, USADA is coming to an end. What is drug testing going to look like after that? That's going to be interesting. That's going to be fun. Not fun. That's going to be interesting. It might be an absolute nightmare. And then I guess there are some theories on UFC 300. Number one, I would have loved it if they had saved Jim Miller for a fight with Tony Ferguson on 300. Well, okay, I shouldn't say this because in a perfect world, Tony Ferguson just retires. That is the apex plan. But if he is going to fight again, and the UFC, despite Dana White saying they wish he would retire, they will not release him because, heaven forbid, he go elsewhere and draw a number. Also, side note, I actually really do hope that they don't release him because I have this gut feeling that he would go to bare knuckle boxing, and though I don't want it. I don't want it. I don't at all want that. So I guess I kind of do want him to stay in the UFC. If he's going to fight, do it there. They seem to be trying to play him as softballs on that one. But yeah, him and Jim Miller would have been perfect. I don't think Brock Lesnar's coming back for UFC 300. I don't think Ronda Rousey is. We will see. I doubt it. There are, of course, the ideas of Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor, I do think wants to fight in the UFC again. And the UFC, of course, wants to have Conor McGregor fight. That's the most likely one. But I don't know. I mean, Conor McGregor seems more and more likely once we get away from the USADA deal and we get into the UFC running its own drug testing stuff. Circling back to that. And that'll probably signify Conor McGregor's return. Going forward, obviously, we got PFL and Bellator under the same roof now. That's a net negative for the business, I think, because I don't trust PFL to fully leverage that. And they're talking about having them as separate entities and like not doing the tournaments that make most sense and so on. Like, that's a mess. Not really a fan. And who knows? They may not even. It may bring an end to the one thing I was really liking that Bellator was doing, which was the co-promotion stuff with Ryzen. That was really fun. I hope that continues, but I don't think it will. And that is, I think, really just about it for this one. So, shortest podcast ever. Sorry about that, but there's just not a lot of fights to talk about. Didn't really get any questions from the viewership to go into really deep. If you've got questions, please feel free to submit them over on the Discord or on the Twitter or in a comment down below. I will certainly be looking for material as we head into the proper Christmas season. So, holiday season. So, happy holidays, whatever you happen to be celebrating. And check out the links down below. That's all I got. Have a good one.